I can still see the look on everyone's face like it happened yesterday. Pure disbelief. Not anger. Not confusion. Just silence. The kind that drops like a curtain when something so out of pocket happens. Nobody knows how to react. It was a warm spring afternoon in Willow Creek Hills, the kind of day you usually associate with potlucks, fresh-cut grass, and kids screaming over melting popsicles. Instead, it ended with George Whitaker, a 74-year-old retired Marine who had survived 3 tours in Vietnam, quietly rolling away from our community picnic, his motorized wheelchair coated in neon pink and lime green silly string. It dripped off the joystick. It clung to his sleeve. Even the tires left a streak of color along the sidewalk as he wheeled himself toward the exit, away from the people he'd thought were neighbors. And there she stood, Elaine Carter, our HOA president, towering over the scene with a look of smug satisfaction and a recently emptied spray can dangling from her hand. She tilted her chin just so, said something about preserving the image of the community, and tossed the can into the nearest trash can as if she'd done something noble. George didn't say a word. His weathered face remained stoic, composed in that way only a man who's seen too much can manage when the rest of us would be falling apart. One of the Rodriguez kids was crying. A few neighbors started to walk toward Elaine, but she didn't flinch. She just adjusted her pastel cardigan, turned on her wedge heels, and strolled away like she'd just trimmed an overgrown hedge. What Elaine didn't know was that within 6 hours she'd be in the back of a squad car, hands cuffed behind her, arrested on charges of elder abuse and harassment after 5 different neighbors submitted video recordings of what had just happened, including one from 12-year-old Maria Rodriguez, who captured everything from the moment she pulled the silly string from her purse to George's slow, silent retreat. When I moved to Willow Creek Hills about half a year before, I had no idea I was walking into the domain of a self-appointed monarch. I'm a software developer. I work from home, keep to myself, and chose this neighborhood because it was clean, quiet, and came with fiber optic internet. I had no intention of getting involved in local drama. The houses were well kept, the landscaping professional, and the HOA fees, though steep, seemed to fund actual benefits. Nobody told me Elaine Carter ran the association like a kingdom. A former real estate agent with an affinity for passive aggression and outdated power suits, Elaine treated the HOA bylaws like scripture and wielded the covenants like weapons. Mailbox paint chipping? You got a letter. Lawn not mowed every 4 days. Another violation. She wasn't about community. She was about control. George moved in about a month after me. He took the little brick house 2 doors down from mine. Quiet guy. Respectful. Kept his place immaculate. The first time I met him, he was outside raising 2 flags, the American flag and the Marine Corps flag. Did it every morning like clockwork. The kind of neighbor who made you feel safer just knowing he was there. We'd talk now and then. He told me about his grandchildren, how he lost his wife Gloria to cancer, and how the only reason he left his old neighborhood was because the sidewalks had gotten too rough for his chair to handle. The rest of Willow Creek Hills seemed to welcome him. Mrs. Mehta from across the street brought him lentil stew on Thursdays. The kids down the block helped him carry his groceries. Everyone respected the man. Everyone except Elaine. I noticed the tension during the monthly HOA meetings held in the sterile clubhouse on Oakview Lane. The first one George attended, he arrived a bit late, apologizing as he maneuvered his chair into the back of the room. Elaine stopped mid-sentence, narrowed her eyes at him, then returned to her presentation with extra emphasis on visual consistency and community standards. Later that evening, I overheard her talking to her 2 bored flunkies about medical eyesores and devices that degrade property values. She didn't mention George by name, but the target was clear. What started as looks and whispers quickly escalated. First came the notice about the flagpole. Too tall, she claimed. Then it was the wheelchair ramp. Unauthorized exterior modification. After that, it was the raised garden beds. George liked growing tomatoes and peppers, and that apparently violated landscaping uniformity. Each notice came with a fine. Each fine came with escalating threats. George stayed calm, always polite, but you could see it wearing on him. His routine changed. Fewer flag raisings. Fewer chats. The porch lights that used to stay on until midnight now went dark by 9. He never complained. Not once. But one evening, I was walking my dog and saw him sitting on the porch, his face in shadow. "I didn't come here for war," he said quietly. "But I'll be damned if I let her make me feel like I don't belong in my own home." I didn't know what to say. What do you say to a man who's faced real enemies, only to come home and be harassed by someone who calls herself a community leader? We started documenting every letter, every fine, every ridiculous claim she threw his way. I looped in my friend Brianna, who worked in civil rights law, and she confirmed that several of Elaine's actions bordered on discrimination under the ADA. Still, we held off on legal action, hoping things would cool down. They didn't. The breaking point came at the neighborhood's annual Memorial Day barbecue. Everyone showed up, the Joneses with their world-famous deviled eggs, the Coopers with their bratwurst. Even Mr. Tanaka, who usually kept to himself, brought ribs. George came too. Wore his uniform jacket over a crisp white shirt. He'd polished his medals, his chair gleamed, and the Marine flag was clipped proudly to the back of the seat that I was setting up folding chairs when I saw Elaine watching him. Not with curiosity, not with respect, with contempt. She whispered something to her husband, Harold. Poor man never looked like he wanted to be there, and disappeared into the clubhouse. 10 minutes later, she came back out carrying a purse that looked oddly full. George was by the playground, talking with the Rodriguez kids about service medals and helicopter drops. Then Elaine strutted over. "Mr. Whitaker," she said loudly, "I'm afraid I need to address a repeated infraction." He turned calmly. "Now's not the time for that, Miss Carter." But she wouldn't stop. "You've been warned multiple times about improper exterior storage. This chair, this device, is in clear violation of the neighborhood's visual harmony guidelines." Then she pulled the can from her purse, aimed it, and sprayed. Neon pink, neon green, all over the control panel, the handles, the wheels, even his lap. She emptied the whole can. George didn't move, didn't flinch, just watched her, his expression unreadable. "There," she said, stepping back. "Now maybe you'll understand what it feels like to be forced to look at something you didn't ask for." Silence. Then Maria Rodriguez's voice, trembling but loud. "I got it all on video." Elaine's smirk vanished. She turned, saw everyone watching. Parents, kids, veterans, even her own husband, who looked like he wanted to evaporate. And then she ran, grabbed her purse, and stormed off the lawn. George quietly wheeled away, his chair streaked with foam, the flag still fluttering behind him. Within the hour, the videos were online. By midnight, they had thousands of shares. Local news picked it up by morning. What Elaine didn't know, what she never bothered to find out, was that George's daughter, Naomi, was a practicing attorney. She filed for a restraining order before sunrise. By noon, the police were at Elaine's door. "It was just a joke," she screamed as they led her away. It was silly string, but the officers didn't flinch. She was charged with harassment, elder abuse, and violating federal disability protections. Her mugshot hit the news that evening. The court case was swift. Naomi provided documentation of every fine, every violation, every letter. So did the rest of us. Maria's video, combined with security camera footage from the community center, sealed it. Elaine Carter was sentenced to 18 months probation, fined $5,000, and ordered to complete 250 hours of community service at the local veterans hospital. The judge barred her from serving on any neighborhood board for 10 years. But that wasn't the best part. 2 weeks after her sentencing, we held an emergency HOA meeting. In a unanimous vote, she was removed from her position as president. Mrs. Meadow was nominated as interim head with George's approval. When the votes were counted, Elaine tried to object, but nobody let her speak. She walked out, red-faced and shaking, with Harold trailing behind. That summer, the community changed. We rewrote the HOA rules, brought in consultants to make sure they aligned with state and federal law, hosted inclusion training, built a ramp at the clubhouse in George's honor. And every morning, as the sun rose, You could see him outside, raising his flags. No longer alone. One afternoon, I stopped by his place with a pitcher of sweet tea. He looked out over the lawn, smiled, and said, "You know, I thought I was done fighting battles. But I guess some wars still need veterans." "Yeah," I said, handing him a glass. "But this time, you had a whole platoon behind you." He nodded. "That's what made the difference." And you know what? It really did.